Abandoned and pregnant, the young woman worked at a millionaire's mansion. Then she discovers a true, pure, and faithful love that transforms her life forever. Don't miss out on such exciting stories like this one. Click on subscribe and let me know in the comments which city you are watching this video from and on what date. Let's go to our story for today. The sun was beginning to disappear on the horizon, tinting the sky with shades of orange and pink when Olivia arrived at the imposing mansion. The classic facade, with majestic columns and large glass windows, reflected the soft light of the evening. Everything about that property exuded luxury and exclusivity, something that seemed to belong to a world completely different from hers. With a small suitcase in hand and a lump in her throat, Olivia took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. Her heart was pounding. She was not just starting a new job, she was trying to start her life over from scratch. At 23, 2 months pregnant, Olivia knew the future wouldn't be easy, since Ethan, the father of the baby, had abandoned her without even looking back. She had to swallow her pride and look for any opportunity that guaranteed a roof and sustenance for herself and the child growing inside her. Being a housekeeper in a millionaire's mansion was not something she had imagined for herself, but faced with difficulties, she could not afford to turn down a stable job. The iron gate opened with a mechanical noise, and Olivia was greeted by Emily, a grey-haired lady with a maternal expression. She was the housekeeper and responsible for keeping everything in order. "Welcome, Olivia. How was the trip?" Emily asked, smiling kindly. "It was fine, thank you," Olivia replied, trying to appear strong while feeling a slight tremor in her voice. The housekeeper guided her through the main entrance, where a large crystal chandelier illuminated the immense hall. The luxurious furniture, the discreet aroma of lavender, and the impeccable organization demonstrated the level of demand of the owner of that house. And then, there he was. Aaron was standing near the staircase, observing her with an unreadable gaze. Tall, with impeccable posture, he wore a well-fitted black suit, as if he had just come from an important meeting. His serious and cold face made it clear that he was not a man given to easy smiles. "Are you the new employee?" His voice sounded firm, with no trace of cordiality. Olivia nodded, trying to ignore the feeling of being meticulously evaluated. "Did Emily explain all the house rules?" he continued, not wasting time with warm introductions. "Yes," Olivia replied, keeping her gaze steady, not looking away. She could feel the tension in the air. Aaron seemed to be a man used to absolute control over everything around him, someone who didn't accept failures or questioning. His presence was intimidating, but Olivia was not willing to show weakness. "Great! I expect professionalism," he said before turning and disappearing down the hallway, leaving her there without another word. Olivia felt a weight in her chest. She didn't expect a warm welcome, but Aaron's coldness hit her like a bucket of ice water. Emily, noticing the young woman's discomfort, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, dear. Mr. Aaron may seem strict, but he has his reasons." "Is he always like this?" Olivia asked, frowning. "Always," Emily smiled, but there was something in her gaze that Olivia couldn't decipher. She didn't press the issue. She knew she wasn't there to judge her boss, just to do her job, and that was what she would do. The first days in the mansion were challenging. Olivia struggled to fulfill her tasks perfectly, but the tension between her and Aaron seemed to increase with each encounter. He was rigid and demanding. His gaze always examined every detail, and his orders were short and direct. "This is out of alignment. Fix it. I want punctuality. I won't tolerate delays. There's no need for unnecessary conversation. Just do what was asked." Olivia, for her part, avoided reacting. She swallowed her irritation and continued her work, keeping herself as professional as possible, but inside, she felt suffocated by that coldness. Sometimes she caught Aaron watching her from afar with an intense and inquisitive look, but whenever their eyes met, he quickly turned away. It was as if he was trying to understand something about her, or perhaps he was just reinforcing his dislike. Even the other staff noticed the strange relationship between the two. Mr. Aaron has never had patience with anyone, but with you. It seems he is more bothered than usual, commented Mia, one of the cooks. And I hardly talk to him, Olivia retorted, sighing. Maybe that's exactly what bothers him. Mia winked, amused. Olivia shook her head, brushing away any thoughts about it. Aaron didn't like her, and the feeling was mutual. But something inside her said that this clash was only the beginning of a story much more intense than she had imagined. One night, Olivia couldn't sleep. The weight of pregnancy, the tiredness of the day, and the emotional pressure left her. Restless, she decided to go out to the mansion's garden to breathe a little. The cool night air calmed her mind. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, she saw Aaron standing a few meters away, his hands in his dress pants pockets. He was watching her in silence, as if trying to decide whether to say something or not. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Olivia hesitated, surprised by his less rigid tone. "No, I just needed a little fresh air." Aaron nodded but didn't say anything more. He just stood there, looking at the starry sky. That was the first time Olivia saw a different expression on his face, something almost melancholic, as if he carried an invisible weight. For a brief moment, she wondered if there was something behind that coldness, something he was hiding from the world. She didn't know yet, but that small moment would mark the beginning of a change that would transform their lives forever. The following days dragged on under the same silent tension. Olivia and Aaron seemed to move within a minefield where any slip could provoke a conflict. He maintained his rigid and impersonal posture, while she, despite her patience, did not hide her displeasure with his cold and authoritarian way. The routine was always the same. Olivia dedicated herself to work efficiently, taking care of the organization of the rooms and managing some of Aaron's personal tasks, such as reviewing documents and organizing appointments, functions that the housekeeper Emily had entrusted to her. But any attempt at communication between the two was a hidden battlefield. "You didn't correctly note the time for this meeting," Aaron pointed out one day, holding a paper with a disapproving look. Olivia raised her eyes from the counter where she was folding some dish towels and frowned. "It's correct. The meeting was rescheduled. I personally received the call and updated the schedule." Aaron narrowed his eyes, suspicious. "You should have informed me earlier." "I did inform you," Olivia replied, maintaining her calm. "I sent an email, and a note was left on your desk." Aaron pressed his lips into a thin line, realizing that, indeed, she was right. He did not respond immediately, only diverted his gaze to the document in hand and nodded slightly, as if accepting his fault, but without conceding. This only served to confirm to Olivia what she already suspected. Aaron was too proud to admit a mistake. However, the bad impression was not one-sided. Aaron also observed Olivia with a mix of curiosity and irritation. Her reserved behavior bothered him. He was used to employees who demonstrated reverence, who avoided direct eye contact, and who followed his orders without questioning. But Olivia was not like that. She did not treat him with flattery, nor did she show fear or submission. Her gaze was firm, her gestures assured. And at the same time, there was something in her that challenged him in a silent way. One night, he saw her in the garden again. This time, Olivia was sitting on a wooden bench, hugging her knees, as if trying to find comfort in the silence of the night. Her face was partially illuminated by the soft glow of the moon, and for the first time, he noticed how young she was and fragile. Aaron stood still at a distance, not wanting to interrupt the moment. Something inside him hesitated, as if sensing that there, alone, Olivia was letting drop the armor she always carried. But before he could realize it, she lifted her head and their eyes met. There was a brief moment of absolute silence. Aaron noticed something different in her gaze. It was not just the exhaustion of the day. There was pain, and for a moment too brief to be described, he felt an uncomfortable pang in his chest. But then Olivia averted her gaze, and the moment dissipated like smoke in the wind. The next day, Olivia had a difficult morning. She was more tired than usual. The weight of pregnancy was starting to take its toll, and her body demanded rest. But she could not afford that luxury. While organizing the mansion's library, she felt a sudden dizziness. Her vision darkened for a moment, and when she realized, she was holding one of the shelves to prevent herself from falling. "Olivia?" Emily's voice sounded worried. The housekeeper approached, touching her arm. "I just need to breathe a little," Olivia murmured, trying to shake off the discomfort. "You need to take care of yourself. Pregnancy demands it," Emily warned. Before Olivia could respond, a firm sound of footsteps approached. Aaron appeared at the library door, his gaze immediately falling on the scene. He frowned. "What is happening?" Olivia quickly stepped away from the shelf, composing herself. Nothing," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "It was just a slight discomfort." Aaron crossed his arms, examining her with those penetrating eyes that always seemed to try to decipher her. "If you're feeling unwell, you should see a doctor." "I'm fine," Olivia insisted, already walking to leave the library. Aaron remained still, watching her walk away, and for the first time, a strange feeling disturbed him. He had never cared about his employees' personal issues. He maintained a strict distance. But with Olivia, something was different. He wanted to understand, and this bothered him more than he was willing to admit. As the days passed, the small conflicts between Olivia and Aaron continued. But something subtle began to change. The looks that were once purely antagonistic now had moments of hesitation. The cutting words occasionally came accompanied by disguised concern, and although neither wanted to admit it, each other's presence was becoming something inevitable. That night, Olivia was finishing organizing some documents in the office when she heard the door open. Aaron entered, removing his tie and throwing his jacket over the back of the chair. He looked exhausted. She tried to ignore him and continue her task, but he broke the silence. "How are you feeling?" Olivia blinked, surprised by the question. I'm fine. You don't look fine," he commented, sitting at the table. Olivia narrowed her eyes. "Since when do you care how I look?" Aaron let out a nasal, almost ironic laugh. "Since you started fainting around the house." She crossed her arms, irritated. "I didn't faint. I just felt a little dizzy. If you're exerting yourself beyond what you can handle, you should say so. And risk losing my job. I'm not naive." Aaron fell silent. Olivia realized that he seemed disturbed. He looked away for a moment, tapping his fingers on the table. "You don't need to be afraid of that," he finally said. She blinked, surprised by the unexpected statement. For a moment, Aaron seemed more human, less the relentless and cold figure she knew. And Olivia, against her will, felt something. Strange stir within her. What was happening between them? She didn't know, but one thing was certain. Coexistence, no matter how difficult it was changing something, and soon neither of them would be able to ignore it any longer. The clock marked 8 o'clock in the evening when Olivia finished organizing the documents in Aaron's office. It had been a long day, like all the others since she started working in the mansion. Still, her mind insisted on revisiting the strange moment she had shared with him earlier. The unexpected worry, the way he looked at her, the silence that hung between the two. Olivia couldn't explain, but something was changing. "Olivia?" Aaron's firm voice broke her line of thought, and she raised her eyes to see him standing at the door. He was without his jacket, with his dress shirt slightly open at the collar, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His gaze was inscrutable. "I need to talk to you," he said, entering the office and closing the door behind him. Olivia felt a slight chill in her stomach. That behavior was not common. Did something happen? Aaron pulled out a chair and sat down in front of her, resting his forearms on the table. "I have a business trip next week, and I want you to go with me." She blinked, surprised. "What?" "I need someone to assist me in organizing documents, notes, and meeting logistics," he explained straightforwardly. "Emily told me you are efficient and organized. Besides, you are already dealing with part of these papers. It makes sense for you to accompany me." Olivia felt her heart race. Working in that house was already a challenge in itself, but traveling with Aaron— "Don't know if I can," she replied hesitantly. "Why not?" She moistened her lips, uncertain. "I'm not the most suitable person for this type of role. Besides, my pregnancy." Aaron leaned back in the chair, crossing his arms. "Is there a medical issue that prevents travel?" Olivia held her breath. She had no complications. She just felt the natural fatigue of pregnancy. Still, the idea of being away from home, next to a man who irritated and intrigued her at the same time, seemed challenging. "And I will pay you double your salary for the days of the trip," Aaron added, as if he knew that detail would make her reconsider. And it did. Olivia would need that money. She knew the next few months would be difficult, and any extra amount could help with the baby's layette and medical exams. Taking a deep breath, she looked at him. "All right, I accept." Aaron nodded slightly, satisfied, and stood up. "Great. Get ready. We leave on Monday morning." He left the office without saying anything further. Olivia, in turn, felt a weight in her chest. Something inside her said that trip would change many things, but she had no idea how much. On Monday, Olivia looked at herself in the mirror before leaving the room. Unlike the simple uniform she wore in the mansion, she now wore black dress pants and a light fabric blouse in a navy blue shade. She wanted to convey professionalism, even though she still felt some discomfort with the whole situation. As she descended the stairs, she found Aaron already waiting for her. He also observed her for a brief moment before saying, "Let's go." The drive to the airport was silent. Olivia focused on staying calm, while Aaron read some reports on his tablet, oblivious to what was happening around. It was only when they arrived at the boarding gate that something unexpected happened. Olivia had brought only a few pieces of clothing in her suitcase, and among them was a flowing dress in a soft burgundy shade, which she wore for greater comfort during the trip. Seeing her like that, away from work uniforms, Aaron froze for a brief moment. She looked different. He had never noticed the delicacy of her features in that way, the way the fabric subtly hugged her silhouette, without exaggeration, but enough for something inside him to twist in a disconcerting way. Olivia noticed his gaze. "Is there a problem?" Aaron quickly averted his eyes. "None," he replied seriously, regaining his composure. But the truth was that for the first time, he was seeing Olivia from a new perspective, and he didn't know how to deal with it. Already at the hotel, after a day full of meetings, Olivia felt exhaustion weigh on her body. She decided to go down to the pool area to breathe a little. The heat of the night made the air stuffy, and the soft sound of the water helped calm her thoughts. She didn't expect to find Aaron there. He was leaning against the edge of the pool, his hair slightly wet, drops of water sliding down his chest. When he saw her, he raised his gaze. "Can't sleep?" Olivia hesitated. "Not much." Aaron nodded and, to her surprise, said, "Come take a dip." She widened her eyes. "What? The water is great." Olivia let out a nasal laugh. "I didn't bring a swimsuit." "You don't need to. Just wet your feet at least." There was something in the tone of his voice that made her consider the idea. After a brief moment of hesitation, she took off her sandals and sat at the edge of the pool, dipping her feet in the warm water. Aaron watched her with an inscrutable expression. "You never talk about yourself," he commented. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "And do you talk a lot?" He smiled to the side, and Olivia noticed that smile, rare and subtle, made him dangerously more attractive. "Fair point," he admitted. "But I'm curious." she sighed, playing with the water. "What do you want to know? Why did you accept this job?" Olivia hesitated, but then decided to be honest. "Because I needed it. For me and for my child." Aaron remained silent for a moment. "And the child's father?" Olivia pressed her lips together. "He left when he found out about the pregnancy." There was a brief silence between them. Then, to her surprise, Aaron said, "He's an idiot." Olivia laughed awkwardly. "That doesn't change the facts." Aaron looked at her intently. "It doesn't, but that doesn't mean you have to carry that pain alone." Olivia felt her heart race. She hadn't expected to hear something like that from Aaron. And at that moment, she realized there was something about him that she still couldn't comprehend. But she felt that somehow that was just the beginning. The trip followed its course between meetings and commitments. Olivia carried out her functions with dedication, while Aaron maintained absolute control over every detail. However, something lingered in the air. An undefined feeling, a silent tension that intensified every time their gazes met for longer than they should. That night, Aaron would need to attend a business dinner with important investors. As his assistant on the trip, Olivia had been instructed to accompany him, ensuring that everything went smoothly. She spent a long time looking at herself in the mirror before going downstairs. Her dress, chosen in haste before the trip, was simple yet elegant. A dark blue silk fabric hugged her body subtly, enhancing her curves without exaggeration. The flowing cut slid over her slightly rounded belly, a constant reminder that her child was growing inside her. Olivia had never worried about her appearance. While working at the mansion, she was always in uniform, always discreet, but now, upon seeing herself dressed that way, she felt a slight nervousness. Taking a deep breath, she slipped on her shoes and headed to the hotel lobby. Aaron was already there, wearing a pristine black suit. He was checking messages on his phone, oblivious to the movement around him, until his eyes met Olivia's. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. Aaron froze. She was not different just because of the outfit. There was something about her that he had never noticed before. The upright posture, the firmness in her gaze, the softness of her features illuminated by the soft light of the hotel. She had always been beautiful, but now, in that moment, Olivia was absolutely stunning, and Aaron felt something dangerous stir within him. Olivia noticed Aaron's fixed and intense gaze and swallowed hard. "Are you okay?" she asked, feeling warmth rise to her face. Aaron blinked, coming out of his trance. "Yes," he replied quickly, his voice slightly hoarse. He cleared his throat, adjusting his tie, as if he needed a moment to regain control. "Let's go. The car is already waiting for us." On the way to the restaurant, Olivia noticed that he seemed different, less rigid, less indifferent. She couldn't quite tell what it meant, but something had changed. The dinner went off without a hitch, with Olivia taking responsibility for organizing notes and documents, while Aaron discussed the details of the negotiation with the investors. However, all the while, she could feel his gaze on her. Not in an inconvenient or invasive way, but in a way that made her wonder what exactly he was thinking. When they finally returned to the hotel, Olivia took off her shoes as soon as she entered the room and sighed in relief. The day had been exhausting. She looked at the made bed and knew that all she wanted at that moment was to sleep. But before she could even change clothes, she heard a knock at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she hesitated, but then she took a deep breath and opened the door. Aaron was there, without his jacket, with his shirt slightly unbuttoned at the collar and the sleeves rolled up. His hair was a bit disheveled, as if he had run his hands through it a few times. But what took her breath away was his gaze, a different look, a look that burned her inside. "Aaron?" she began, confused. He didn't say anything immediately. He just looked at her, as if he were fighting an internal battle. And then, in a low and intense tone, he said, "You drive me crazy." Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with something the two had been avoiding for far too long. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Then, finally, he broke the distance between them. Aaron slowly raised his hand, as if giving her a chance to pull away, but she didn't back down. His fingers brushed the side of her face, gently descending to the curve of her neck. Olivia shivered. "I tried to ignore it," Aaron murmured, his voice hoarse. "But I can't." Olivia felt her breath quicken. She knew there was something between them, something that had been growing with every exchange of glances, every moment when silence spoke more than words. But was this real, or just a fleeting illusion created by the environment, by the forced proximity? She didn't know. All she knew was that at that moment her heart was beating too fast. "Say I'm wrong," Aaron continued, his eyes locked on hers. "And I'll leave right now." Olivia took a deep breath. Her hands trembled as she held the hem of her dress. Her mind screamed for caution, to think of the consequences, but her heart begged her not to run away. The silence between them was so dense that it seemed to fill the entire space around them. And then, finally, Olivia spoke. I don't know what to think." Aaron gently held her chin, tilting her face slightly. "Then don't think." She felt his warm breath so close, and she closed her eyes. But before anything could happen, a loud knock at the door made them pull away, as if they had been yanked back to reality. Olivia took a step back, her heart racing. Aaron closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if cursing the interruption. "Did they?" Knock sounded again. "Olivia, are you in there?" It was Emily. The housekeeper's voice sounded worried from the other side of the door. Aaron ran a hand through his hair, taking a deep breath. When his eyes found Olivia's again, there was a whirlwind of emotions there. But the moment had been broken. Olivia placed a hand on her chest, trying to catch her breath. I need to answer." Aaron nodded slowly. Without saying another word, he took a step back and left. Olivia stood there for a few seconds, trying to understand what had just happened. Her body was still warm. Her heart was still racing. But above all, she knew one thing: nothing between them would be the same after that night. The clock was striking almost midnight when Olivia, still dazed by the events, went down to the pool area. The warm night air enveloped her skin, and the silence of the hotel was broken only by the gentle sound of the water moving with the breeze. She needed a moment to breathe, to understand what the hell was happening between her and Aaron. He left her confused. In the last few days, the cold and distant man she had started working with seemed to be giving way to someone different. Someone who, behind the rigidity and authoritarianism, hid an intensity that scared her, and at the same time attracted her in an inexplicable way. She sat at the edge of the pool, dipping her feet in the water. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the heat she still felt on her skin after the moment they had in the room, but then she felt a gaze on her. Olivia looked up and saw Aaron standing a few meters away. He also seemed to have been pulled by something greater than his own will. He wore only a pair of swim trunks, his bare feet on the stone floor. His hair was slightly tousled, and the soft light reflected on his tanned skin. For a moment, no one spoke. Then he slowly walked to the edge of the pool and entered the water leisurely, as if that were his natural place. Olivia followed each of his movements with a tightening in her chest. He swam to the other end, ran his hands through his wet hair, and then turned to face her. "Why don't you come in?" His voice sounded hoarse, low, laden with something Olivia still couldn't name. She swallowed hard. "I didn't bring a swimsuit." Aaron raised an eyebrow, a discreet smile playing at the corners of his lips. "And is that a problem?" Olivia felt the heat rise in her face. He shouldn't provoke her like that, not after what had happened between them in the room. But against all her expectations, she found herself curious, tempted. Maybe it was the warm night. Maybe it was his gaze, which made her feel things she had never felt before. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because, for the first time in a long time, she wanted to allow herself a moment without overthinking. So, without breaking eye contact, Olivia lifted the hem of her dress to her knees and stepped down the pool stairs, feeling the warm water envelop her skin. Aaron watched her the whole time without looking away. "Better this way?" she asked, trying to sound indifferent, but her heart was hammering against her chest. Aaron swam over to her, stopping just inches away. The tension in the air was almost palpable. "Better," he murmured, his voice low, laden with something dangerous. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling restless. She shouldn't be there. She shouldn't feel her heart racing like that just because he was so close. But then, Aaron raised his hand and touched a strand of hair that had fallen across her face, brushing it aside with a gentleness that made her stomach churn. "You intrigue me, Olivia," he said, and there was truth in his words. Olivia held her breath. She didn't know how to respond to that, because deep down Aaron intrigued her too. Before she could say anything, a distant noise made them turn. A hotel employee was passing by in the distance, and Olivia felt reality return with a cold shock. What was she doing? Her heart was still pounding hard as she took a step back. "I think I better go." Aaron watched her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And then, instead of insisting, he simply nodded. "Good night, Olivia." She climbed the pool stairs, grabbed her sandals, and hurriedly walked away. From there, but even when she returned to her room and tried to sleep, her body still burned with the memory of his touch. And something inside her told her that after that night, there would be no going back. The next morning, Olivia struggled to act normally. She focused on work, documents, emails. But every minute she felt Aaron's gaze on her. It wasn't an invasive gaze. It was something deeper, as if he were trying to understand why, after so long building barriers between them, it now seemed impossible to ignore the attraction that grew every day. By the end of the afternoon, when they finally returned to the mansion after the trip, Olivia felt a weight on her chest, because now, back to reality, she didn't know how she would move on, pretending that nothing had happened. And worst of all, she wasn't sure she wanted to pretend. The return to the mansion was marked by a silence filled with unspoken emotions. In the car, Aaron drove with his eyes fixed on the road, but Olivia felt that at any moment he might say something. However, he remained silent. Perhaps he was trying to find the right words, or maybe, like her, he was afraid of what that trip really meant. Since dinner, since the night by the pool, everything seemed to have changed. There was a different energy between the two, a tension that surrounded them even in silence. But now, back in reality, the bubble that enveloped them during the trip seemed about to burst, and Olivia didn't know if she was ready to deal with it. When they arrived at the mansion, Olivia got out of the car and grabbed her suitcase, but before she could enter, she heard Aaron's voice. "Olivia." She turned around. His eyes were dark, intense, as if carrying an invisible weight. "Sleep well," he simply said. It was not a common goodbye. There was something in his voice that made her feel a tightness in her chest. Olivia just nodded, unable to say anything, and entered the house. But as she climbed the stairs to her room, she knew that this story was far from over. In the following days, Olivia tried to focus on work. She returned to her routine in the mansion, organizing documents, helping Emily, and avoiding crossing paths with Aaron as much as possible. But avoiding him was almost impossible. He always seemed to be nearby, and every time their eyes met, something electric passed between them. One afternoon, while Olivia was organizing some papers in the office, Aaron walked in. She kept her eyes fixed on the desk, pretending not to notice his presence, but he didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the doorframe and stood there watching her. The silence was suffocating. "Are you avoiding me?" he finally asked. Olivia hesitated but didn't lift her eyes. "No." "Then look at me." She held her breath, and then slowly she raised her gaze. Aaron was staring at her with an intensity that made her shiver. "That night," he began, but Olivia interrupted him. "It was a mistake." The answer came out before she could even think. Aaron frowned, but he didn't seem surprised. "Is that what you felt?" Olivia swallowed hard. No, that was not what she felt. But admitting it would be opening a door she didn't know if she could close later. So, instead of answering, she averted her gaze and picked up one of the documents from the desk. We need to finish these revisions for tomorrow's meeting," she said, abruptly changing the subject. Aaron remained silent for a long moment. Then he let out a sigh and took a step back. "As you wish." He left the office, and Olivia felt her heart tighten, because at that moment she realized that saying it was a mistake wouldn't make it disappear, and pretending that nothing had happened was becoming increasingly difficult. That night, Olivia had trouble sleeping. She tossed and turned in bed, her thoughts spinning out of control, until, unable to stay lying down any longer, she decided to go downstairs for a glass of water. But when she got to the kitchen, she found Aaron there. He was leaning against the counter, holding a glass of whiskey, his expression distant. Olivia froze in the doorway, but before she could decide whether to leave or not, he saw her. "Can't sleep." She shook her head. Aaron watched her for a moment, and then gestured, grabbing a glass of water and handing it to her. Olivia took the glass, but their hands brushed lightly, and a shiver ran up her skin. "You said it was a mistake," Aaron said, his voice low and firm. "But I can't believe that." Olivia closed her eyes for a moment. "Aaron, tell me you didn't feel anything." His request hit her like a shock. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say the words, because lying to him would mean lying to herself. Aaron took a step closer, closing the distance between them even more. "Since we got back, I've been trying to act like nothing has changed," he continued, "but I know it has." Olivia's chest rose and fell with a trembling breath. She could smell his woodsy scent, feel the closeness of his body. "You're trying to run away from something that already happened, Olivia." She closed her eyes, trying to ignore the heat consuming her, but then she felt Aaron's fingers gently touch her waist. His touch was warm, secure. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. Olivia felt a knot in her throat. She wanted to speak, wanted to push him away, but her body wouldn't move. So instead of pushing him away, she lifted her gaze and got lost in the depth of his eyes. And in that moment, she knew she was about to cross a line from which she could not return. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Olivia. Since the trip, everything had changed between her and Aaron. Even though they tried to ignore it, the connection between them became harder and harder to disguise. And at that moment, in the silence of the kitchen, with him so close, so intense, Olivia knew that any resistance was about to crumble. But before either of them could take action, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Olivia quickly stepped away, grabbing her glass of water and pretending nothing was happening. It was Emily. The housekeeper stopped when she saw them together, blinking slightly, as if she realized she had interrupted something, but with her usual discretion, she didn't comment on it. "Aaron, your mother called," Emily said, handing over a handwritten note. Aaron sighed, taking the paper and running his fingers over his forehead, already anticipating trouble. Olivia noticed the tension in his expression and, seizing the opportunity, murmured a hasty goodbye before leaving the room. But as she climbed the stairs to her room, she knew that the unfinished conversation between her and Aaron could not be postponed for much longer. The next morning, Olivia was trying to concentrate on her work when Aaron appeared in the office. This time, he didn't hesitate. "I want to talk to you," he said, closing the door behind him. She raised her eyes, feeling her heart race. "About last night? About us?" Olivia swallowed hard. He approached, pulling a chair to sit in front of her. His eyes were filled with something intense, something that made every cell in her body twist. "Since you arrived, I've fought against this," he began, his voice low. "I tried to keep my distance. I tried to ignore it. But I can't anymore." Olivia held her breath. Aaron ran his fingers through his hair, visibly frustrated with himself. "I know you're pregnant. I know your life is complicated enough. But what's happening between us? I can't pretend it doesn't exist anymore." Olivia felt the words hit her heart. She looked away, clenching her fingers. "Aaron, it's not that simple. I never said it was, but I want to be by your side." The confession completely disarmed her. Aaron had never been a man of sweet words or impulsive declarations. For him, everything was rational, calculated. But now, he was giving her his heart in a way Olivia never expected. She felt a lump in her throat. "You don't have to do this out of pity," she murmured, unable to look him in the eye. Aaron frowned, clearly irritated by that assumption. He leaned slightly forward, taking her hands in his. "Pity?" His voice came out firm. "Do you think I'm the kind of man who would make a decision like that out of pity?" Olivia felt the intensity in those words. "Then why?" she whispered. Aaron took a deep breath, and without looking away, said the words that would change everything. "Because I love you." Time seemed to stop. Olivia's eyes widened, feeling the air escape from her lungs. She didn't expect to hear that. Not so soon, not like this. But then, before she could react, Aaron continued, "I want to take care of you. And the baby. Marry me." The proposal was straightforward, without preamble, without insecurity. Olivia felt her heart pound against her chest. She never imagined she would hear those words one day, let alone from Aaron. And for a moment, everything inside her screamed to accept, to say yes. But then a shadow from the past came to haunt her, and doubt settled in like poison. That same afternoon, Olivia was still trying to process everything when something unexpected happened. A black car pulled up at the mansion's entrance. Olivia was in the garden when she saw him, and her blood ran cold upon recognizing the figure who got out of the vehicle, Ethan, the father of her child. She felt her legs weaken. The man who abandoned her, the man who turned his back when she needed him the most, and now he was there as if nothing had happened. Ethan walked up to her, a hesitant smile on his face. "Olivia." His voice made something within her twist, anger, pain, confusion. "What are you doing here?" she managed to say, her voice cold. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know I was wrong. I know I was a coward. But I've thought a lot, and I want to fix this." Olivia felt as if she were living a nightmare. "Fix?" she repeated, incredulous. "You left me alone, abandoned me without looking back. Now you come back saying you want to fix it?" Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "I want to take my role. I want to be present in our child's life." Those words pierced Olivia like knives. She wanted to scream, she wanted to cry, but above all, she wanted this to be a lie, because now everything was about to crumble. Olivia was still trying to catch her breath after the conversation with Ethan when she found Aaron in the office. He was sitting at the table, but when he saw her enter, he immediately stood up. "What happened? You look pale." Olivia forced herself to breathe deeply. She needed to be honest with him. Ethan is back. Aaron's eyes darkened. The name was enough for him to understand everything. What does he want? He said he thought better, that he wants to be present in the baby's life. Aaron didn't respond immediately. His jaw tightened, and Olivia saw the cold glint appear in his eyes. And do you believe him? Olivia hesitated. She didn't know what to think, but above all, she knew that at that moment, her life was about to turn upside down. And deep down, she feared that this upheaval would push her away from Aaron forever. Olivia felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. Ethan's words still echoed in her mind like a ghost from the past that refused to be forgotten. He returned. After months of silence, after leaving her without even looking back, and now he said he wanted to be a father. She wanted to believe that this was sincere. She wanted in some way to find a trace of truth in his words, but all she felt was a mix of anger and fear, and above all, confusion. Aaron crossed his arms, his eyes fixed on Olivia. She noticed the tension on his face. His jaw clenched, his fingers curled at his sides. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice firm. Olivia took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "I don't know." Aaron furrowed his brow. "You don't know." Olivia ran her hands over her face, exhausted. "He has the right to see his child. Aaron, I can't just send him away. After everything he did, after leaving you when you needed him the most." The pain in his voice made Olivia's chest tighten. She knew Aaron was right, but she also knew that no matter how cruel it was, Ethan was the biological father of the baby, and that changed everything. The next day, Olivia agreed to meet Ethan for a conversation. She chose a discreet cafe in the city center where they could talk without interruptions. When she arrived, she found Ethan sitting at the table, anxious. He stood up as soon as he saw her and broke into a small smile. "Thank you for coming." Olivia sat down without responding. She was not there to make concessions. Ethan cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "I know I'm asking a lot," he began, "but I've spent all this time thinking about what I did, about how cowardly I was." Olivia crossed her arms, waiting. "And what has changed?" she asked, her voice emotionless. Ethan swallowed hard. "When I found out about the pregnancy, I panicked. I wasn't ready. But now, after so much time, I realize that I can't run away." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "You ran away, Ethan. And now you expect me to just forget everything and accept that you want to be part of my child's life?" Ethan sighed. "I don't expect it to be easy, but I'm willing to fight for it." There was a heavy silence between them. Olivia felt a part of her scream to send him away, to not believe a word he said. But then she thought of the baby, of the child who wasn't even born yet, but who might one day ask about their father. And she realized that she couldn't make this decision based solely on her own pain. When she returned to the mansion that night, she found Aaron in the library. He was sitting in the dark leather armchair, a glass of whiskey in his hands. But upon seeing her enter, he put the glass aside and stood up immediately. "How was it?" he asked, straightforward. Olivia sighed, feeling the weight of the day on her shoulders. "I talked to him. And?" She hesitated before answering. "I don't know if I trust him, but he is the father." Aaron pressed his lips together, clearly trying to contain his frustration. "Does that mean you're going to let him get close?" Olivia ran her hand over her face, exhausted. "I need to think about what's best for my child." Aaron stepped forward, his expression serious. "And what's best for you, Olivia?" She held her breath. He always did this. Always made her question the things she tried to ignore. But before she could answer, he continued. "Do you trust him?" Olivia looked away. "It's not a question of trust. That's exactly it." There was something in Aaron's eyes, something Olivia had never seen before, pain. "I don't want to lose you," he said quietly. The words hit her like a shock. She felt her legs weaken. Aaron stepped forward closer than ever. "You said you needed time. I understood. But now I need to know." He gently touched her hand. "Do you love me, Olivia?" She felt the world spin. Yes, she loved. But saying it out loud meant admitting that she was completely vulnerable. And with Ethan back, with everything uncertain, she didn't know if she could handle it. "Aaron, But before she could respond, a voice came from the door. "What's going on here?" Olivia turned around, feeling her stomach drop. It was Ethan, and he looked furious. The silence in the library was as dense as the storm about to break. Ethan stood at the door, his eyes fixed on the scene before him. Olivia and Aaron, so close that the air between them felt charged with something he did not understand, or did not want to understand. Olivia felt her whole body tense. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" she asked, her voice coming out firmer than she expected. He took a step forward, his jaw clenched. "I came to see how you were, but it seems that I'm interrupting something." Aaron, who had remained silent until then, crossed his arms and stared at Ethan with a cold, calculating gaze. "If you really wanted to know how she is, you would have stayed when she needed you the most," he said, his voice controlled but sharp as a blade. Ethan let out a dry laugh, loaded with sarcasm. "And you? Since when do you care so much about her?" Olivia's eyes widened. She knew that this conversation could take a dangerous turn. "Ethan, please." But Aaron had already stepped forward, his presence dominating the space between them. "Since I realized that she deserves more than a coward who ran away at the first sign of responsibility." The impact of those words was immediate. Ethan's face turned red with anger, but before he could react, Olivia stepped between the two. "Enough!" she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I don't need this. Not now." She took a deep breath, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. Then she turned to Ethan. "If you really want to be part of the baby's life, you need to stop acting as if you're claiming something you lost the right to when you chose to leave." Ethan clenched his fists. Finally, he took a deep breath and stepped back. "I just want my place, Olivia." "And you can have it," she replied, tired. "But that doesn't give you the right to decide anything about my life." Ethan watched her for one more moment, then turned his gaze to Aaron, as if he were imprinting that moment in his memory. Without another word, he turned and left. The silence that remained was heavy. Olivia felt her shoulders drop, exhausted. But when she looked up, she found Aaron watching her with something deep in his eyes. He didn't say anything. He just stepped closer and held her hand firmly, and Olivia knew in that instant that he was not going anywhere. But things were far from calming down. 2 days later, Olivia found herself facing another unexpected obstacle. Aaron's mother. She didn't know much about the woman, just that she was extremely reserved and rarely visited the mansion. But that afternoon, as she went down to help Emily with some chores, she found a woman of impeccable posture sitting on the main sofa. Her sharp eyes analyzed every detail of the room with an air of discontent. Upon noticing Olivia's presence, she raised her head and smiled. But it was not a welcoming smile. It was a calculated smile. "So you are Olivia." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. This was not a casual conversation. "Yes, ma'am," she replied, maintaining politeness. Aaron's mother crossed her legs, her expression remaining cold and imposing. "I heard that you and my son are close." Olivia took a deep breath. She had anticipated that this conversation would happen at some point. "Aaron and I have a relationship of respect and affection," she said, choosing her words carefully. The woman let out a small laugh, but her eyes remained impassive. Oh dear. Let's spare the formalities, shall we? Olivia swallowed hard. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about what is clear to everyone. You are a humble woman, pregnant by another man, and somehow you've captured my son's attention. The words were spoken with a cutting softness. Olivia felt her stomach churn, but she maintained her posture. With all due respect, Mrs. Madison, my life is not a scam. Madison raised an eyebrow. I'm not saying it is. But Aaron has responsibilities, an image to uphold. Do you really think he can build a future with someone like you? Those words hurt more than Olivia would like to admit, but she would not let this woman dictate her life. She raised her chin, resolute. I'm not asking anything of Aaron, neither money nor status. But you are accepting it, aren't you? Olivia felt the anger rise in her body. But before she could respond, a new voice filled the room. Mom, what are you doing here? Aaron, he appeared in the room, his eyes narrowed, his tone loaded with impatience. His mother stood up gracefully, adjusting the bag in her lap. Just getting to know the girl you seem so enchanted with. Aaron crossed his arms. You came to my house to humiliate Olivia? Madison let out a theatrical sigh. My son, I'm not humiliating anyone. I'm being realistic. You need to think before acting on impulse. I've already thought. Aaron's tone was sharp as a knife. He wrapped an arm around Olivia's waist, like a protective shield. And my decision is made. Madison stared at her son for a long moment. Then she stood up, grabbed her bag, and adjusted her posture. You can believe you've made a decision, Aaron, but the world doesn't work like that. You will see that this story will not end as you imagine. With that last phrase, she turned and left, leaving behind an almost palpable tension. Olivia felt her body tremble. Aaron turned to her, holding her face between his hands. Don't let her make you doubt us. Olivia's eyes were filled with tears. What if she's right? What if you regret it? Aaron held her face more firmly. Never. And then, without leaving space for more insecurities, he kissed her. This time, without hesitation. This time, sealing something that not even his mother could destroy. Olivia felt her heart pounding against her chest. Aaron's kiss had been more than just a demonstration of affection. It had been a promise, an affirmation that he was there, that his choice was her. But at the same time, the weight of her mother's words still hung over them both. Aaron held her tight, his eyes searching hers. I know what you're thinking, he said, his voice low but filled with certainty. Olivia looked away, struggling against the conflicting emotions inside her. Aaron, your mother is right. I don't belong to your world. Olivia, he took her hands, holding them tightly. You belong to my world, because it's in it that I want you. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the tension drain from her body. I'm scared. Scared of what people will say. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you made a mistake. Aaron let out a sigh, but he didn't pull away. I have never been more certain of anything in my entire life. Olivia's eyes met his. But what about Ethan? He said he wants to be present in the baby's life. Aaron ran a hand across his face, exhaling frustration. I'm not against that. If he wants to be a real father, then great. But he needs to understand that you're not alone. Olivia felt a tightness in her chest. Do you really want to take all of this on? Aaron leaned in a little closer. I want to take you on, and the baby is part of you. So yes, Olivia, I want. She felt tears welling up in her eyes. But before she could say anything, Aaron held her face with both hands and pressed his forehead against hers. I love you, and I am here. I always will be. The world around seemed to disappear, and for the first time, Olivia began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to fight alone. In the following days, Olivia allowed herself to breathe. Aaron's words still echoed inside her, warming her heart. But reality still had to be faced. Ethan hadn't given up. He continued insisting on getting closer, wanting to prove he was ready to be a father, and Olivia had to deal with it. One afternoon they met in a park where she decided to be completely honest. "I'm not going to stop you from meeting the baby, Ethan, but if you want to be present, you need to be consistent." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "I understand." Olivia watched him for a moment. "And one more thing," she continued. "I'm with Aaron." Ethan fell silent for a moment. "Do you love him?" The question caught her off guard. But then, without hesitation, she answered, "Yes." Ethan looked away but nodded. "If he makes you happy, then I accept." Olivia felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she felt like she was taking control of her own life. When she returned to the mansion that night, she found Aaron in the office. He was bent over some papers but looked up as soon as he saw her enter. "How did it go?" he asked, direct. Olivia walked over to him and sat down in the armchair opposite him. "I talked to Ethan. He accepted that I'm with you." Aaron watched her for a moment before grinning sideways. "He didn't have much choice." Olivia laughed, shaking her head. But then something changed in his expression. He picked up a small envelope from the table and handed it to her. "What is this?" "A gift." Olivia opened the envelope and found an ultrasound. Her eyes widened. "How did you get this?" Aaron smiled. "I called the clinic and asked for a copy. I thought you would like to have a keepsake." Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at the image of the baby, and for the first time, she felt truly secure. Aaron wrapped his arms around her, holding her against his chest. "Everything will be all right, Olivia." And in that moment she believed, because for the first time in a long time, she was no longer alone. The days passed like a blur. The relationship between Olivia and Aaron grew with intensity and depth, but the weight of the challenges still loomed over them. Ethan's presence was a constant shadow. Although he had accepted Olivia's relationship with Aaron, his closeness to the baby still caused insecurity. And on top of that, there was Aaron's mother. Madison had not given up on trying to separate the two. And then came the great storm. It was a quiet morning when everything fell apart. Olivia was in the living room, helping Emily organize some new flowers, when she heard raised voices in the office. She immediately recognized Aaron's voice, and the other voice. It was Madison. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. She slowly walked down the hallway, stopping close enough to the open door to hear the conversation. "Do you really intend to go through with this, Aaron?" Madison asked, her voice laden with disbelief and irritation. "I already told you that this decision is not up to you, Mom." "Not up to me? I am your mother. You are a businessman, an influential man. Are you going to throw it all away for a woman who appeared out of nowhere, pregnant by another man?" Olivia's blood ran cold. She knew Madison didn't accept her, but hearing that hurt more than it should have. "I love Olivia. That isn't going to change," Aaron replied firmly. "You are being naive," Madison insisted. "She might seem sincere, but do you really believe that a woman like her wouldn't take advantage of your position?" Olivia felt her face burn. She clenched, her fists, her heart pounding in her chest. But then, before she could leave, she heard the next sentence, a sentence that made her freeze. "If you insist on this, I will disinherit you, Aaron." The silence that followed was absolute. Madison had just declared war. Olivia didn't know how she got to the garden, but when she realized it, she was sitting on a stone bench, her heart racing. She knew that the fight against Madison wouldn't be easy, but she never imagined that Aaron's mother would go so far. She would never allow Aaron to lose everything because of her. And then, for the first time, a painful thought crossed her mind. She should leave, before she could destroy everything Aaron had built. That night, Olivia went up to her room, packing her few belongings. She made the decision. She was leaving. But then the door opened, and Aaron was there. His eyes scanned the room and landed on the open suitcase. Immediately, his expression hardened. "What are you doing?" Olivia swallowed hard. "I need to go, Aaron." He stepped towards her, his eyes intense, furious. "No, Aaron, no. You are not going anywhere." Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Your mother is going to disinherit you. You will lose everything." Aaron held her face, forcing her to look at him. "I don't care about money. I care about you." A tear rolled down Olivia's cheek. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." Aaron smiled, a small, sad smile. "Don't you understand, Olivia? You are already my family." The words hit Olivia like a storm. She sobbed, unable to hold back the tears. Aaron pulled her into his arms, holding her against him. "I chose you. Nothing my mother says will change that." Olivia closed her eyes, allowing herself to sink into that embrace. And at that moment, she knew she didn't have to run anymore. But the final twist was yet to come. The next morning, a black car pulled up to the mansion. Madison got out, her posture impeccable as always, but her face carried something different. She had changed. Olivia and Aaron were in the living room when she entered. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, Madison broke the silence. "I went too far." Aaron crossed his arms, suspicious. "You really did." Madison let out a heavy sigh. "I spent my whole life trying to control everything around me, but maybe I forgot that what matters most cannot be controlled." Her eyes turned to Olivia. "I was unfair to you." Olivia blinked, surprised. "I didn't expect Aaron to fall in love with someone like you. But love isn't chosen." Olivia felt a tightness in her chest. Madison took a step forward, looking at her son. "If this is your choice, I will no longer interfere." Aaron narrowed his eyes. "Why?" Madison sighed. "Because I saw something I never saw before." She looked at Olivia, and this time there was something genuine in her gaze. "I saw my son happy." The silence was broken by a small sob. Olivia brought a hand to her face, trying to hold back the tears, and then, to everyone's surprise, Madison took one of her hands. "Welcome to the family." The wedding took place in an intimate ceremony, surrounded only by those who truly mattered. Ethan fulfilled his promise and remained present in the baby's life, no longer trying to interfere with Olivia's happiness. Madison, although still distant, began to gradually draw closer. And when the baby finally arrived, the first thing Aaron did was hold him in his arms and whisper, "My son." Olivia watched him, her heart overflowing with love. They had been through so many storms, but in the end, they found what truly mattered: love, trust, family, and above all, a new beginning. Together, forever. What an exciting story, isn't it? Olivia faced immense challenges but found in Aaron a pure and true love, proving that, even in the face of the greatest storms, there is always hope for a new beginning. And you? Have you lived or know someone who has gone through a story of love and overcoming like this? We really want to know your opinion.